the Podfix Network.
Hello and welcome. This is episode 170 of the Filmmakers Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk
about filmmaking.
From indie film to studio films and
everything in between.
How to get them.
How to make them. How to get them made.
Close. And how to try not to
fuck it up, in our very, very humble opinion.
Yes! I am Giles Alderson. I'm a writer, director and producer. I'm delighted to have on as our guest on the Filmmakers Podcast today, Danny Draven. He's a horror legend and he's one of my fave horror people ever, so I'm delighted to get him on. But before we talk about him, you've heard him already. He's the fantastic Robbie McCain and he's my co-host for this intro. Hello, Robbie. You all right?
Hey, Giles. How's it going?
Pretty good, thank you. I think he's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's
right?
good.
It's coming out of lockdown. Isn't it time we come out of lockdown?
It is. Let's get some filming done.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Are we close to any movies? I think I might
Hopefully,
be.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Have you been cooking up a few ideas whilst we've been
there's quite a few
lockdown?
things in bubbling along, and now it's a case of, are those investors actually going to put the money in? How can we actually do it safely? All that kind of stuff is now being put into place. So all the rules that Directors UK have set out, and the government rules as well, are just, they're in place and it's doable. We can make movies. It's just now, who dares go first, who dares put the money in, what the insurer's saying. So they're insuring you basically, but the caveat is if someone gets COVID at the moment, it's kind of your issue. So it's just trying to balance that out. So we're getting there. What
Fantastic. About you? Yeah, I've been starting to write a few projects myself, actually sort of collate a few ideas where, you know how it is, you have things spinning around, percolating around your head, and you feel like, if only it was the time to actually solidify those into ideas and actual scripts and stories. And thankfully, the one positive thing of this situation is we do have that time if we're, working remotely or from home to do that. So yeah.
Can't wait to hear them, buddy. Can't wait to hear all about them.
Absolutely.
So should we talk to our lovely listeners? Thank you so much for listening, by the way. Really appreciate it. Let's talk to them about this week's guest. Now, you edited this. Thank you so much for doing that. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your thoughts, what you gained from this, as well as what other people will gain?
Yeah, well, Danny, as you'll hear, he's a lovely guy. He's really enthusiastic and passionate about what he does. He's really like a filmmaker of doing rather than, not an armchair filmmaker. He's gone out, he's made hundreds and hundreds of projects. He's been part of things, he's jumped in from the start of his career. Not necessarily caring about even if it's like a sort of pulpy B-movie horror film, he's still in there. He's learning the tools. He's become a accomplished filmmaker through that school, and so many sort of hidden gems and nuggets of knowledge for you guys today to hear.
Totally, yeah. He talks all about his Cine Study Academy as well. He also sent me some links for Danny Draven's Master of Terror, which you can get on Amazon now, and Danny Draven's Horror Vault. Both of those links will be in the show notes. They're both out in the UK and the USA, and they're just fantastic insights into how to make movies. He's also got a brilliant behind the scenes of how he made his film. Which one was? I think it was Ouija's Halloween Night.
I think it was Ouija's, yeah. And he actually live streamed that over YouTube live.
Live streamed?
Yeah.
The whole making of that film.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
And he made it in 4 days. So he made that movie and he made another movie, which I think was Deathbed, in 4 days. He tells you all about how he did that through Full Moon Pictures. He also talks about Stuart Gordon a bit, doesn't he? Which is really interesting.
Yeah, of the great Reanimator fame. All to come, listeners, all to come.
All to come. What makes a good horror film? Here it comes.
So, Giles, what's happening with King Arthur?
So...
Arthur and Merlin.
Thanks, Robbie. Arthur and Merlin Knights of Camelot is out on July the 13th. That's literally under 2 weeks away. We were trying to have a premiere. It's almost impossible. We're going to try drive-in screening as well. That just was way too pricey. So we're don't know what we're doing. Might just have a cast and crew screening, but it is out on July the 13th. It is happening. It is available for all those people to see, which is just crazy because we shot it feels like just like 5-6 months ago. And now it's out. Link to that is in the show notes. If you want to support, please do. And A Serial Killer's Guide to Life, thank you, Robbie, has been
That's
released.
on Showtime, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes, it has. Thank you, Robbie. It's on Showtime in the USA, so it's on Sky here in the UK and Showtime in the US of A. So go watch it. Do support. If you got that, go support. It means the world to us.
So fans of Sightseers, kind of gritty English kind of black comedy horror, definitely check that out. And
I thought you were talking about Arthur and Merlin then.
Yeah.
Oh, it is gritty. It's not
comedy horror, yeah. So, and make your film. When's the next event, Giles?
July the 9th, so 4 days before Arthur and Merlin is released. We're doing another Make Your Film online special where any donations go towards Film and TV Relief Fund for the COVID Relief Fund to help filmmakers. So it's only a couple of quid anyway to join. And obviously it's online for about 3 hours. And we have amazing guests. Dara Resnick, as you know, I announced a couple of weeks ago, and she's a showrunner for some amazing TV shows. And our second guest we've just announced is the fantastic Todd Garner. He's the massive Uber Hollywood producer of hits such as Black Hawk Down and Tag and Haunt and the upcoming Mortal Kombat reboot. So that is July the 9th. Link to that is in the show notes. Come join us. It's going to be a fun one, isn't it, Robbie?
Absolutely. And if you've been to any of the other events, you know how great they are, and it's just an amazing masterclass of talent. And it's basically like a film school for are we charging it? Is it £1 or something like that? A couple of
quid, yeah. You can at least do a couple of quid.
It's basically like a slice of film school for a couple of quid. Why not join?
Perfect.
It's a perfect way to spend an evening if you're a film fan and you're into, if you want to get involved with the UK film industry.
There you go. July the 9th. Come join us. Why not? Wherever you are in the world. That's what's so great about the online stuff. Hence why we got Todd Garner to join us. Uber producer. I'm so excited. So, shall we get to today's episode with Danny Draven?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Let's do it. Here's my chat with me, Giles Alderson, and Danny Draven. Enjoy. Hey, Danny. How are you, buddy?
Hey, good. How are you, Giles?
Oh, I'm good, thanks, mate. So let's talk about you and your journey, because, for me, you're one of my horror heroes. You're in that bracket of an indie filmmaker, and what I preach on this podcast and what I try and achieve as a filmmaker is getting out there and doing it and not waiting for anything and just getting out there. And you're one of those guys. Yeah. Danny Draven's been your name's been around for a long time, and I've read your book. All of them actually, but I love the Filmmaker's Book of the Dead. I think it's absolutely fantastic, especially being a horror filmmaker as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. A book like that is just perfect.
If you like the book and the information that's in the book, that anything new will now come in the form of my Cine School Academy, which will just be able to, sort of fill in that missing gap of more updated material and more information.
And that's not your only book as well, because you've also got Genre Filmmakers and Talk You to Death as well. You've made 3 books. It's an incredible achievement. But so those books are available as well. I think it's great. I'll put a link to your website and people can find them for sure. But I wanted to talk about you and your journey and getting there, so the inspiration for other filmmakers out there who are trying to do what you do. So from what I can tell, you did a lot of editing when you started out. Was that something you were naturally very good at? Was that something that just came to you?
Editing, I think, I've always been particularly drawn to that part, particularly post-production in general is kind of one of my, if not my favorite part of the filmmaking process. But the editing actually came out of just the sort of doing everything yourself in the filmmaking. And I was one of the lucky people to have learned how to edit on film. So my first editing was 16 millimeter. Well, actually it was 8 millimeter back in the Super 8 back in the day. But in film school, my first experience with actually editing a short film was bench edits, rolling it through the the movie scope and physically cutting, splicing film together. And because I was shooting with Bolexes and the H16s and all, the 16 millimeter cameras, that we were shooting color reversal film at the time. And color reversal film, there's no, you're not shooting negative and then having to make work prints that you would, or I'm sorry, work copies that you sort of cut together and everything. So what we would do is, when you get that film back from the lab, that was your negative. I mean, that was it. So every cut you would make, you have to be very, very careful in how you cut it, because if you cut in the wrong spot, or you cut a little here, or cut a little there, or the sprocket holes get ripped up, that's it. I mean, so you were very careful in how you edited the sort of color reversal footage that we got back from this camera. So I don't know. I think it just came from being very careful at that stage on how to edit, and then it just evolved into editing on a flatbed, which I don't know if you've ever edited on a Steenbeck before.
I haven't, but I've seen one in action.
It's I love Steenbeck. I don't with the other method, is a little more tedious, but when you edit on a Steenbeck, you would have a big screen. You got 8 plates, so you would literally bring in your movie on all these, you have your picture, and then you would have your mag tracks, and you would sync it all up, and then you would roll it through the Steenbeck, with the little thing, and then you would when you make a cut, you unlock and and you have to cut the picture, and you cut the audio, and you splice it, and then you relock it, and then you run it through again, and that's how that's how the history of movie editing was like for a long time was people editing that way. So I learned how to edit like that. Okay. And going to digital, it was just kind of like an easier way to do it. And and so I'm one of the I guess I'm very lucky that I was able to learn that way. And then editing was from that. Once it got to digital, Final Cut came out, and and actually Premiere back in the day, and Media 100 and all that stuff back in the early days. It was just a piece of cake for me from going forward.
I bet.
And,
Exactly.
And I've been and kind of been doing it ever since. I edit my own films. I never let anyone else edit my films, really, because I just it's easier not to. And I've edited a ton of films. I mean, even what I'm credited on IMDb, which I've definitely edited more than 200 films, feature films.
Wow.
But I don't take credit on a lot of stuff, so I kind of ghost edit, a lot of things. But
is there some you don't want credit on?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I don't want to be. Yeah, I would just rather. I mean, because I own a post production company, and a lot of stuff that I edit, I don't normally take credits on and stuff. But definitely over 200 films at least. I mean, tons of stuff for Full Moon. I've edited for stuff for Sci-Fi Channel to Disney
Lionsgate. You've done everything.
Spots.
Lionsgate UK.
A lot of stuff. As a director, I couldn't tell you that. One of the most important skills that you can have as a director is definitely to have a strong background in editing, because really editing is the last. Even now it's probably more like color correction and grading and stuff is probably the last frontier, but certainly editing and color correction is sort of that last stage where you can really shape your film, and more so now with color correction. I've done things in color correction that I'm literally like relighting scenes, with the way, with stuff I've been doing. So, but yeah, very, very important if you want to become a filmmaker is to learn how to edit.
Totally agree. It's something I've been saying on the podcast for a while, actually, and I'm glad I learned to edit. I taught myself online, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. It's not, but it was one of them. It was there. It was just so frustrating trying to get it to work on your own. And I wish I should have gone to a little school, paid a little bit of money, and done it. But I learned myself, and now it's so important. Not that I edit my films, but I know how to edit them, so I understand when I'm shooting what goes into the edit. I'm very careful about that.
Absolutely. And it's important. And even if you don't want to edit your own films, I mean, not everybody is an editor. Editing is very hard for some people. They can't. There's a lot of people, and that doesn't mean you're not a good director just because you don't edit. You don't edit,
Agreed.
Or anything like that. That has nothing to do with it. But you do need to understand editing and how you can manipulate the image and how you can manipulate story, how you can manipulate pacing, all that stuff. You have to have a very good understanding of editing and storytelling in general. I can take takes that are good, and I can make the actor look good. I can make the actor look bad. I can screw up the pacing. I can arrange the story in a way that makes no sense whatsoever, or I can arrange it in a way that that helps it. And then you have to think especially on indie films, you have to really think outside the box. You have to
Yeah.
think like, what can I do to extend the running time, or which we do a lot, or what can I do to to buy some stock footage and make this scene a little bit more interesting, or make the budget look like it was a little bigger than it was. I do that all the time, and those are other ways you have to sort of think outside of the script that you have in front of you, and how you can just visually make it work with any way you can.
I love that. And I really think that's important. Just to understand it is just vital. And I think an editor's job it's the third place where you shape the movie, properly. That's where you can take out characters, take out scenes. You can reshape. Like you say, you can make an actor look fantastic who was not getting away with it. A scene that didn't really work now suddenly works. It's incredible.
Well, it is incredible. And I've worked with Michael. I did a movie called Patient 7 with the great Michael Ironside, and I got to direct him, which was awesome because I was a fan of his since Total Recall and Starship Troopers and all that. But we were shooting a ridiculous amount of pages a day. Shot the whole movie in freaking 4 days.
Did you?
And it was such an amount a crazy amount of lines that he'd have to go through every day, that he had his script in his folder and we were just not, again, as an editor, I direct kind of like an editor, because I know, I do very little takes. I know exactly what I need to get, and then we're able to move very quickly. With him, it was just such an enormous amount of dialogue to get through, but you have to sort of think like an editor and just say, you know what, I got this, I got that, I got this, I got that, I got this. I'm going to cut to that, and then I can have him read some of these lines off screen because I know I'm not going to be on screen for, So you sort of edit as you make it, and that's just, I don't know, it's just a style of filmmaking that I'm used to, and what I do on every film, and again, it's a vital, I think, skill to have.
Oh, I totally agree. But I want to just jump into this. You shot Patient 7 in 4 days.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's incredible. For those of you who haven't seen Patient 7 yet, do go see it. I can't believe you shot that in 4 days. But your editing skills there will have come in massively, because you'd have gone, well, I don't need the wide on this scene because I'm not going to use it, or I'm not going to spend too long on the wide because I'll use it for the opening, or let's just jump from there to there and just get that line. I imagine you were working that way.
Well, yeah. And on that particular film, what I had to do is, I had to cut a lot of shots. You go in with sort of a wish list and you end up getting maybe 20% of it. So I had to cut a lot of shots just because of time. But I had to block shoot a lot of that film. And for those of you who might not know what block shooting is, it's sort of like in that particular film, the vast majority of the movie takes place in this doctor's office, the doctor played by Michael Ironside. And we had to jump around a lot, and I was going so behind on setups, I ended up block shooting all the master shots for pretty much most of the stuff in that room in one series of takes. And I hate doing that because it saves you time, but it gets very confusing very quickly on what you got, what you didn't get, and particularly when the actors have to go in and out of different emotional states, which in his case was a lot.
Yes, it's very difficult.
So it's very confusing for us. It's very confusing for the actors. I don't recommend doing it really unless you really have to, because it really gets very confusing quick. But yeah, I had to do that and a lot of other things in order to just make up on the lost time that we had on that. When you're shooting, 15 pages a day or whatever it was, and with a star actor like Michael Ironside, too, it's and on you, and it was union, so you got you can only shoot with we're shooting with union crews, so it's the days are only 10 hours or 12 hours max, I think.
Yes.
And you don't go over, because then they just drop what they're doing and they leave. So you have to make the time, and it can be very challenging. Whereas on the indie in the indie world that I come from, we're 16, 18 hours. We're sleeping on the ground. We're sleeping on the set. We're eating garbage food all day long. That's the way I made movies, you know,
when you started,
even for Full Moon.
Yes. Yeah.
But once you kind of cross into sort of a little bit more of the professional realm with unions and all that stuff, you can't get you don't get away.
You can't get away with it. You can't get away. For those that don't know, Full Moon Pictures, well, they did the Puppet Master series and Trances, etc. You know, some amazing horror movies over the time. So, I mean, let's come back through your journey a little bit, because it is fascinating. Because you pretty much learned on the job, I suppose, at Full Moon Pictures. Is that right? Did you go straight from your degree to Full Moon Pictures? How did you get the job there? How did it work? Because that's full on. It's great.
Sure. Well, I mean, after I graduated from film school, I was in Boston, Massachusetts, is where I went to film school at Emerson College. After that, I mean, I had a film degree, you know, and I moved out to Hollywood, and I was kind of determined to get into a company that was making I never wanted to get into a company that was making like the big, you know, sort of blockbuster-y type movies, because I knew the path to getting to be a director is practically impossible unless you're, you know, it's very slim.
And at that, to jump in, Danny, at that point, did you know you wanted to be a director? Was that something that was? Oh yeah, that's exactly. You knew, you were like, this is what I want to do.
For sure. Okay, I knew. I've always known that. Yeah, from when I came out to Hollywood, that I wanted to be a director. You know, and so I focused on trying to work for companies that I knew were making more of the independent stuff. You know, because that's just what I prefer. It was kind of a long, I mean, I did all kinds of odd jobs, you know, paying my dues, and worked on stuff I wouldn't even mention now. The only way I was able to get into Full Moon was through their web department. Right. So I ended up, because I was a web designer as well, I had a lot of experience with web design and tech, and I could hand code HTML and all that stuff, which I probably forgot now. At that time, so I had sent them something. I had an interview. I went into Full Moon. I saw all the puppets in the thing, and I was like, man, I would love to like work here and maybe get to direct a movie for them one day. So I did the interview, and the guy called me and basically said like, no, I'm sorry, you know, we're going to pass on you. So I actually didn't get the job. Oh, Jesus. The first time I went into Full Moon. Yeah. They basically told me to fuck, you know, the heck off. So I ended up, I was a little disappointed. Because I really liked Full Moon. I really wanted to get in. So I ended up creating a new website, a new portfolio of all this web design stuff that I could do. Sent it to the guy again like 2 weeks later and said, hey, I was just, you know, I did this new thing, and I'd like to be given another chance, and blah, blah, blah. So he looked at it. It was really cool what I did for it. Yeah. The guy looked at it. He actually called me. He called me on the phone and said, hey, I admire your tenacity, bro. Why don't you come in for another interview? So I did, and I got the job.
Mate, I love that. I love the fact that somewhere you really wanted to work, and you said, I'm not going to take no for an answer, and I'm going to do what I can to get there. That's what it's about, mate. I love that. Yes.
That's exactly how it happened. I still remember him calling me again and just being like, you know, I admire your tenacity, come in. And then he's just like, okay, you got the job. And then
you went, now I've got to do web design.
Yeah. And this was the, keep in mind, this wasn't in the film department. This was strictly in web design. So I was doing marketing, website design for the Puppet Master movies. I created their original Full Moon, you know, fullmoonfeatures.com or fullmoonpictures.com and the Big City Pictures, all those websites. I was involved with the designing of them back in the day. So I got to know people there, obviously, because I was working there, and slowly kind of, you know, met up with a group of people that I ended up living in the same apartment building in North Hollywood that they were in, and I don't know, just kind of we just all were independent filmmakers and friends, and one thing led to another, and one of the guys had a sort of producing deal for Full Moon, and I just got involved with making movies with them and editing movies with them, and then just kind of over years, it just kind of evolved into me making films directly with Charlie Band.
Can you remember your first? Yeah. So can you remember your first one back then? Can you remember how it happened? How you felt? You know, because it's a big deal. Your first movie, even if nothing happened.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, my first feature film with Full Moon was a like I don't even if I can even say shoestring budget, just no budget. It was such a no budget movie, but it was this movie called Horror Vision, and it was basically like the poor man's Matrix, I should say. And with all these like long drawn out like montages and anyway, because we were trying to get to a running time, because back in those days, if you had to have at least 74 minutes a movie, but because we shot it so quickly and with no money, it ended up being like 60 minutes. So we had to pad it out with a lot of driving montages and stuff. So anyway, my first movie with Full Moon was this movie called Horror Vision. And it was a lot of fun. I worked with when I met Mac Allberg, who shot Reanimator and all this stuff. So he shot the film for us. And I was 21, I think, at the time.
So you made your first feature film at 21.
21, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, for Full Moon.
For Full Moon
yeah,
Pictures.
Yeah,
mate, that's just incredible.
And it just kind of went from there, man. It felt pretty good. And eventually William Shatner hosted it on Sci-Fi Channel for this show called back in 2004 or 2002 called Full Moon's Fright Night, where William Shatner actually hosted 13 Full Moon movies, and Horror Vision was one of those movies. And so cool. I was involved in that too, in a way for the post-production end of things. And it was on Sci-Fi and the whole deal. And he kind of got on and did like this sort of tongue-in-cheek thing with it, and it was really quite entertaining.
That's so good. How nice did it feel to have the whole gang sort of, championing your movie as well, being part of that team once you'd made it and you were in the edit? Was there moments when you went, I fucked up here? Or was it just, no, I feel it's all right? Because I think that's really interesting.
I mean, well, certainly when you finish the film like that, and that movie we shot very quickly, and back in those days we were pioneering, but now it sounds like a joke, but back in those days, shooting on video and getting it released was kind of a big deal, because nobody was really doing it but like George Lucas, and that was back like before 24p, before 20. That was back when we were shooting on DV cam or mini DV or DV cam on it interlaced. So we were shooting 29.97, and then we would take it into a film looking process. And we had poor man way of doing it too at home, but using plugins and After Effects and all that stuff. So we were shooting video and getting this stuff released at Blockbuster Video and in the US, Blockbuster Video and all the home video markets and foreign and everything else. So we were kind of pioneering this back in the day.
You're now with the team at Full Moon. Were they just like, cool, let's go make some more? Did you then keep coming up with ideas about what to do next?
I made another movie for them called Hell. We did this movie called Hell Asylum, and then eventually, by the time I got to making a movie for them, it was like an urban horror vampire movie called Cribs.
Yes.
I started. That was when my company started producing for them. It was more like a direct deal that I had with them at the time, and basically Charlie Band, who at the time was just. Basically like, hey, we want you to make this movie for $35,000 US dollars. Right. And I was like, okay. Even then it was not a lot of money. So I made this movie called Crips. Basically we were making these sort of made to order movies, and they would say, well, look, we need you to make because I didn't like wake up one day and said, you know what, I want to make an urban horror vampire film. That wasn't how it happened. Sure. What it was is I got sort of a reputation of being able to make these things very quickly, cheaply, on time, and very profitable. So they would say, make us a movie. Right now, urban horror was very popular. Right. So that's how that movie. So we just make us an urban horror movie, and we need it in like a few months. And so I did. It's $35,000. I made it in a few months, and it was out in Blockbuster within like 6 months. It was very fast.
This is just wonderful.
And that's how that happened. And then we went right into another. I was going to make like 2-3 movies a year for him, and we went right into another movie called the Grim Rapper. Which I had started to develop, but I hated the script, and I actually wasn't directing it. I hired another director to do it. Right. And I ended up actually quitting on the film because I was like, this movie's going to be so bad. So I quit, and immediately got on to doing another film for them called Deathbed, which is how I teamed up with Stuart Gordon, because Stuart Gordon and I were kind of friends, and he was very interested in kind of seeing how we were making these movies so cheaply and quickly, you know, because he was used to making movies like
big movies.
Fortress.
Yeah.
So we ended up teaming up on Deathbed to make a movie together for only $25,000, because that's how much that was made for. Wow. 25. And we made this very quick movie called Deathbed, and it was a script he had, and I just kind of came on, and we kind of partnered up to make it for Full Moon. And
how are you actually making them for this kind of money? Then is it literally everyone's doing it for pretty much nothing? You know, is it like you say, sleeping on floors? Is it everyone like, who wants to do this? Who's coming together to make it? You know, is it because it is a fast turnaround as well, and you are getting them in Blockbuster, and they are doing really well. Yeah. So it's a bit like, okay, surely it's the time for you to be getting more money and saying, well, look, at least give you some money to eat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know,
25
right?
grand is nothing.
I mean, the truth of it is the truth of it is I went into a lot of personal debt on those films. A lot of them. I spent a lot of my own money, actually, just because I wanted the extra crane, or I wanted this, or just to pay the bills or whatever. I went into a lot of credit card debt back in those days.
Wow.
To make those films. But let's just say like a film like Deathbed, for instance. I mean, I shot the film in 8 days. Okay. Everybody got paid. Like I wasn't begging people to work on the films. I mean, now everybody got paid, you know. So like for instance, like the DP, production, we had a production designer. I mean, they weren't getting paid a lot,
but
you know.
They were
getting paid.
I
think back then it was probably, I think around $100 to $150 a day was probably what they were making on those. Okay. But, you know, it was an 8-day shoot. You know, we shot probably 12 to 14 hours a day. And it was, you know, sometimes we had a day off, I think, and then we would shoot maybe 4 a day off and then 4. But essentially, you know, everybody was getting paid, and they were getting their money at the end of the day and getting fed every day, and, you know, and the whole thing. So it wasn't like slave labor or anything. I mean, we were feeding people, you know, there was lunch every day. There was craft service. It was a real set, you know, but it was just done very cheaply is all. So I had a very minimal amount of people on set, you know, and I was, so, and I saved a lot in post, obviously. Yes. And production was expensive because we were shooting these in Los Angeles. So I was paying locations. I was paying for, we did own the equipment, most of the equipment. Okay. But I was paying for sound guys, grips, food, the whole deal.
And you're producing as well at the same time. So I
was producing those.
You're organizing everything and shooting it. And wow. I mean, what did you learn from that for our filmmakers now listening? What tips and techniques could you have done differently, or what was really good that you went, I'm glad we did that?
Well, I mean, looking back on, I think the most important thing you can do on any low budget thing is to don't be too cheap when it comes to things. And what I mean by that is, or don't overburden yourself with too much to do, because you end up with probably not as good of a movie as you could have had if you would have delegated the work a little bit more. And what I learned to really help was to delegate a little bit more, because I'm kind of a, you know, I like to think of myself sometimes as a jack of all trades. Well, I can do that, or I can do that. But then you overwhelm yourself and nothing ends up getting done. So you have to really delegate it, particularly if you're making a movie in a short amount of time. And this is true to this day. This is how I do it. And it's really just a matter of delegating it out. And I like to get a very strong management team on board first thing. So a line producer, a dedicated line producer, is probably one of the most important things for me to get off the bat. Yep. Dedicated line producer and a dedicated UPM if you can afford it. But at least a line producer, at least somebody who's not creatively involved and is just helping you, making sure people are showing up on time, doing phone calls, you know, the whole deal, because it can get very hectic if you don't do that. So get a strong management team in order from the get-go. And it doesn't, again, you don't need a whole department. You just need like one guy that's just like, okay, I'm your line producer and I'm going to get everything done, you know, great. But preferably at least on the between like $100,000 and the $200,000 range, which is kind of a general budget range for like independent films, with you know, I mean, real, you know, sort of budgeted independent films, under 200,000, under 250,000 ish. Get you a strong management team in order for sure. And make sure you at least fill all your department heads and give them as much as they need, you know, and what I mean by that is don't have the guy who's doing your costuming also doing your craft service. You know, make sure that you dedicate those team members and really get your team in order, and your production will go just so much smoother. It really will. Don't double up on duties. It just is not. It sounds good it looks good on financially on paper, but at the end of the day, you really need dedicated people in those departments. Don't skimp on your camera department. Definitely don't skip on your sound department. You just bring together a really tight, well-oiled team, and you can just make movie after movie after movie with the same people. And that's what I try to do. I was always using the same people, because we knew each other and we knew how each other worked, and I knew who was good and who was a good egg and who was a bad egg, you know, and who wasn't going to be complaining if we went half an hour over. And I tend to surround myself with those people who were like that.
Yeah, and, good team players.
We made movies after movie, and I recommended them too to a lot of other jobs after.
I think that's very important. I think for any filmmaker out there who's going into a production role, or as a runner, or whatever it is, assistant, or, you know, line producer, UPM, is to be that great team player. Because how the indie film works is you get recommended, as Danny just said. You move forward and you move up because someone calls you up and says, "Hey, do you know a good scriptie?" And you go, "Actually, I do." But if the person you just worked with was terrible, there's no way you'd recommend them, or they're horrible, or they moaned or complained. Yeah, if you want to be an indie filmmaker, you just got to get on with it, right? I mean,
there's a list that, and maybe it's just you know, a hypothetical thing, but if you were a person that had complained, or you're a person that didn't show up on time, or whatever the problem was, I mean, and you know, we all know each other. Like, I know so many different horror filmmakers, or not just horror, but I mean, I've, you know, just producers, directors, composers, everything, and we all will recommend people that we know are good folks. One, they do good work. Two, they're not complainers. They're not a pain in the ass, you know, and I have recommended so many people for jobs. I mean, I've recommended, there's just too many for me to even say. And it's not just filmmakers, it's actors too.
No, definitely.
And actors don't realize this. When they come into an audition, with me, I'm in the room. So even usually in the first call in, the first group of batch, they'll come in. Some of these people come in, and man, I'm just like, I'm horrified on how rude some of them are, how unprepared some of them are. And I'm like, you know that I'm going to remember you. People are going to remember you, you know, and it's like, it's really terrible.
Agreed.
But I'll recommend actors all the time. I'll say, "Oh, he's great to work with, such a professional," you know, and then there's other actors I'll say, "Oh, you definitely don't want to work with him."
Totally. And it goes the same way, even if someone who's really talented but is a pain in the ass, not working with them. It's just, I don't care. I'd rather work with someone who is a little bit less talented but were brilliant on set, and everyone loved to have around, because it's so hard on a film set. It's so much hard work. If someone's annoying or a pain in the ass, you've got to deal with that, and you don't want to deal with that because there's so much other stuff to deal with. So hire good people. Star
actors are a pain in the ass too. So.
Yeah, why is that? There's just no need.
They're just pampered, and they can be a real. So if you're making an indie film and you think, you know, oh, we got to get a star actor in here, you know, I mean, not all of them obviously are like that, but if you hear something about one of them from another, like you say, hey, you worked with that guy, what was he like? And they say, oh, he was a horror to work with. You might want to think about another choice, because honestly, they can really screw up your film. They can slow you down to a halt. So you really want to pick name actors that you know are, what I say, low budget friendly, and are sort of, you know, take direction or don't need much direction to work with, because it can really put a big giant kink in the wheel if you get the wrong person on set, because
totally
especially when you're shooting 10, 15 pages a day, you need a well-oiled machine. You don't need a cranky old actor who says, what, I gotta do what? So they're shooting a half a page in 2 days, not 15 in one. So
no, absolutely. I think that's great advice, and I think it's absolutely vital. I think that the pampered star is true. If you hear a rumor, it's probably true. I mean, hey, there's always someone has a bad day. That's the thing. People do have bad days, and they might not have gone with that particular person. So do your homework and don't just ask one person. Ask 3 or 4 if you can who've worked with them. Call Danny up and go, Danny, you must have heard something about this person, and that's what we do as indie filmmakers. We all help each other. The amount of calls I've taken, and I've asked, hey, what was this person like? And I'm honest, because you've got nothing to lose, I'm very honest, and I'm sure you're the same. So you went from, you're now directing indie movies for 20, 30 grand, and then you kind of kept going. You went on this journey, and your films were doing really well, and you were getting a reputation. How did you keep carving out that career? Were you still editing at the same time? Were you still getting money in that way so you could go off and do, lower budget indies?
Ever since I started producing, producing for hire, I had started my own sort of production company. So, my company had always had a post-production outfit to it. So we could do editing, DVD authoring, Blu-ray authoring, closed captioning, fixing post problems. I had a full, sound design, Pro Tools, anything you can possibly think of, we were doing. But at the same time, I was producing things for other companies and also for my own company.
Yes.
I still remember I made this film, back in the day, called The Offerings, which Lionsgate put out. Yeah. And again, it was a 100%. That one in particular was 100% my own company's film. But I shot on 35. We shot at Nevada. It was wow. A fun experience to do that. And again, I was producing and directing at the same time and doing the whole thing. Wow. and shooting on 35, which is not, for those of you who have not shot on film, because a lot of the generations now they're like, film.
I've not shot on film. I've not shot. I want to.
It's a different process, obviously.
Yeah, because I like to run I'll keep going with my take. I like because there's nothing, because I do find that frustrating sometimes when everyone will suddenly rush in and touch something up, touch a light, touch an actor with makeup, whatever. I'm like, no, they're in the moment. They were just about to cry, or they were just about to get to the point. Don't cut, don't stop, because I'll just go in and say a little word and say a tiny thing to tweak a bit and get them to go again. I can't do that on film. Right. I wouldn't be able to do it, and I love to do that. How did you? Well, how do you deal with it?
It's a discipline. It's honestly, it's a discipline. Just like learning how to edit on film was a discipline. Learning directing on film is also a very strict discipline, especially on independent films, because you're shooting Star Wars, whatever. You screw up a take or two, nobody's going to care. You could shoot film all day long, nobody cares. Yeah. But when you're shooting on an independent film, you're shooting a 35 millimeter on under $150,000 film. Yeah. Film, the film cost alone, plus the developing and the transfer and all that stuff. You have to really, really be very discipline on how you shoot, how many takes you're doing. The actors need to hit their marks. Your camera team has to be top notch, because they need to be able to they need to pull that focus right, or otherwise you're just burning through money. Literally, it's like burning through money on a reel. It's just every time somebody screws up or you have to do it again, it's $100 gone. So
that's scary.
So
that's frightening.
It's very frightening. But it looks. Frank, if it looks it looks great.
I love the way you went there from, you were going to swear and say fucking amazing, and you was like, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, and you went down to looks great.
It does, and brilliant. I'm a film. I love film. Yeah. I prefer film over any camera, but when I do have to shoot digital, it'll probably always be the Alexa, because that's my favorite one of the kind of the Alexas and the Reds and all that stuff. I love the Alexa. I shot Patient 7 on the Alexa with master primes, and I did everything I could to make it look as much like
film as possible.
Film as possible.
Of course we do. We grain it up and everything in post. We do
grained it up. I pull I get it more silvery, and it just, you know, and a lot of that has to do with the lenses you're using too, and the color grading that you have a process to it. But, you know, I love the Alexa, but I mean, the offerings I shot on a movie cam compact, which is this big old camera, and Fuji film. We shot on Fuji before Fuji went out of business. Okay. I bought all this Fuji's 35 millimeter stock, and I mean, it was great. I mean, I just love it. I just love film in general, just the touching it and putting it in the camera and the thing in the gates. And to this day, I have, I still restore old projectors, you know, on my own, and I still have like 16 millimeter prints of movies, and I run it through the, you know, projectors, and I still have movie scope and rewinds. I'll put up, I can still to this day put up a roll on there, run it through, splice on some leader, and run it through my project, you know, the whole deal. So I love film.
I can tell.
And it's not dead. It's not dead.
No, it's
but it
not.
is definitely.
It's going to come back. It just will. It's in its own way. It'll move around when it needs to. And I'd love to shoot that. I'd love to shoot. And one day I will. I want to jump back a little bit. You mentioned when you were a producer for hire, and there's some producers listening now. What would, how's best to work with a director who they might have written it, and you're coming on as producer for hire, and you've got to worry about budgets and things like that? How did you deal with things like that?
Your job as a producer is to support the vision of the director. So, and if you don't, you have to always remember that that's really your job. And, you know, don't step on their creative vision. You know, you can guide them, and that's your job, is to guide them on certain things. But and to let them know when they're completely off the rails as far as budget, you know, and time and all that. You know, obviously that's part of the producer's job these days. Everybody's a producer, and everybody's a director, and everybody's an editor, yet no one is. Because I mean, you really have to. Anybody can slap the name of producer onto something, but a real producer kind of feels it would be great if they came from the background of being a line producer or UPM, and because they really need to understand production and how it works, you know. And a lot of people don't. They just think like, oh, I'm a producer, you know. It's like, well, have you ever line produced before? No. Have you ever UPM before? No. Yeah. Well, how are you really? What do you do? Well, I have my name on the credits.
Yeah, and I wander around,
do a few premieres.
Talk to the actors.
They don't really. but to be able to solve problems, to be able to support your director, to be able to support your cast and your crew, and just make sure everything is running smoothly, problems are getting solved, things are coming in on time, on budget, and technically things are, you're surrounding yourself with people that you trust, because that's important. Yes. You don't need to understand everything, but you do need to hire people that you trust. That if I'm hiring a sound guy, that I know that sound guy is going to give me the best sound that I can, you know, and and some of that comes through references too, you know.
Great answer, thank you, very good. So I suppose I want to keep talking about the horror side of it as well, and obviously because horror's been your sort of livelihood, and obviously you've not just done horror, but horror is what you're known for. What do you think three really important, well, just any important elements to make a good horror film first, before we jump back into the next sort of three films that you've also just directed?
Sure. Three more like important parts of horror.
Yeah, what's an important part?
What makes a good horror?
Yeah, what makes a good horror film?
I think horror for me is I think it comes down to the material. I think first too, you have to really think about what kind of film you're making. Whether that be a found footage horror film, or a comedy horror, or just a straight up horror movie where your intention is to scare the living daylights out of people or whatever. I mean, I think you really have to first decide, what kind of horror movie am I making? What is the audience for this film? What kind of horror movie am I making? And I think once you know that, and you know, it'll make your other decisions that come after that a lot easier. So if I'm setting out to make a slasher film, okay, I know my audience, I know the genre, I know the other films, I know the competition films that are coming. A lot of scares, you know, you're gonna have a lot of scares. You're gonna have to have a great monster, whatever that's, you know, like something like a Jason or you know, really pick out the story elements that you can exploit. I mean, a lot of the horror is an exploitation type genre, you know. So you know, whether that's the naked girls at the pool or the slasher
monster character,
you know, a character, and just, you know, make it really stylized if you can, because that's really helpful, to have sort of a stylistic approach to making the film.
That's great.
But I think it comes down to the script, really. Just, you know, have a, because I read so many scripts that just the story is just so not really there. And you really got to make sure that you have, in horror, I think in particular, make sure that you have a really good concept overall. I think that's very important. A great title, great concept, and then obviously a good script. You know, you got to have at least a 3-act structured script. There, you got to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so many movies do not have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Most of them, it's like a beginning and then an end, or a middle and an end, or just a beginning and nobody really could figure out you know what I mean? You at least, and don't overcomplicate it. You know, you're not making you're making a horror picture. So you at least from my experience, you just focus on making a well-structured horror film. Just have a beginning, have a middle, and have an end. Have good actors. Have a great monster if it's a monster film, or a great effects or whatever, and just and give the audience something that they want. You know, and go from there. It's really not that complicated. It's kind of that simple. And, you know, do you put your own spin on it? You know, if you have your own idea on how a slasher should be made, great. But that doesn't mean you can't still have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Totally. You know, don't kind of go off the rails with like, oh, my movie's so different. I'm just gonna not have all those, or tell it backwards or something. Because you might alienate your audience because they don't understand.
Well, and talking about the gore side of things in horror, because we touched on it a little bit there with the slasher. What is the best way to get really good effects? Because a lot of people go, oh, I'm going to go make a horror. It's cheap. I can go do it. But they miss the most important thing, I think, which is getting the gore right, getting the blood right, getting the wounds right, all that. What do you think? What have you learnt over your time that really makes that stand out?
Definitely what's going to stand out is hiring a good effects artist. I mean, that's obviously step number one. But you know, I mean, I've worked with a lot of great makeup effects artists, but I've actually had a lot of them have trained on the sets too, you know, where I'd have a really good makeup effects artist and he would bring like 4 or 5 of his assistants that are just learning, but they're very talented. And so we would have like a team of 6 people, but they're all very talented. So I would say, you know, on the indie level, if you can get someone who's a teacher at a school, or somebody who's just, you know, look at their portfolio and see that they can do the work, do gore work, and hire people that are really good at what they do. And a makeup, you got to be careful though, because I've made this mistake before where I've hired, somebody who was a local hire. And the reason we do that is to save money, obviously, as opposed to bringing one of my friends from LA, which would have been the better choice. Sure. I hired someone who was a makeup artist who could do beauty makeup for all the actors, but could also apparently could do some, you know, some gore effects here and there. And I was like, I kind of trusted what they said, and I saw 1 or 2 things. And first day of shooting with the monster effects, I went into the room. I didn't do a makeup test before, so I went in and I saw it, and it was dreadful. It was horrible. And you know, and I'm shooting. I got the crew ready. We're ready to go. There's no time to redo this. This stuff takes hours to get into. So I ended up bringing them out, and we ended up shooting the scene. And it kind of was that way for the whole shoot. And so what I did was, because of being a post guy, is I did something called digital makeup in post, which is basically I had to take... I cut around a lot of the bad stuff that I didn't want in there, which was unfortunate because it didn't make the scene as good as it could be. And then the stuff that was in there, I ended up doing like face morphing and tracking their face and adding like veins and all kinds of like stuff in post in order to fix bad makeup. So yeah, it's a problem, you know, and you want to make sure that if you're going to do gore, if you're going to do stuff, that make sure you're hiring people that are experienced with doing it, and also hire people that can do it quickly, because everybody is always going to tell you that you're going to say, okay, we're ready to do the heart coming out of the chest. And it's going to say, oh, well, I need 2 hours, you know? And it's like, no, you got 15 minutes, you know, you need people that are can roll with those kinds of sketch that can do it very quickly and good.
Yes.
And another key to making that stuff look good is make sure you're hiring people that are used to doing film effect, like gore for film, and not for like photography.
Yeah,
you know,
very different.
It is very different, and because you get them on set, and then things are lit, and people are moving around, and and it's like cut, and then they gotta wait. Meanwhile, they're bleeding. So you gotta make sure people are used to the film end of things and how that looks, and it's going to look different on film. And you want to work with a DP who can light gore, and can light blood, and it can make it look like it's real as opposed to like when it's really fake. Because if you overlight stuff like that, like for instance, you're going to start seeing latex, and so you really got to be careful on how you light that stuff as well.
Yeah, that's great advice. Certainly, so good, good. Yeah,
and you can look. I mean, I've screwed that up many times. So, I mean, you could look at some of their stuff like that, like, oh man, what happened? But you learn.
Of course you do. And looking back, you can always do that. Looking back, at the time, you've probably been like, that's great. It's great, but you can make mistakes. But I think that's great advice. Hire the best you can possibly for your budget, but if not, research them massively and do some tests, do some camera tests if you can afford it. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, there's no excuse now.
Even on your iPhone,
if you have
an app on it will do it. Yeah,
absolutely.
So, what do you think's the easier genre? Because horror, I've done both horror, I've done drama, and I've done historical action, etc. And I found horror very difficult because not only you've got an audience who specifically love horror, and they will call you out on a bad bit of VFX or a bad storyline or whatever. Do you, in your mind, is horror harder than drama per se?
I would say because the reason I say that is because horror is a very, especially now. I mean, back in the old days, back when film was just being discovered, I mean, remember that I think it was the Great Train Robbery.
Yes.
They used to show that, and when they showed that in the theater, people ran out.
Yep,
because the train was coming towards the screen, and they actually thought it was coming at them. They were terrified. They ran out of the theater.
The same with the Man in the Moon. They believed that there's a man in the moon because they had not seen it. Absolutely.
And now where are we? I mean, you got a movie like Hostel, which is like some of the most graphically disturbing. I mean, I'm not personally, I don't really like those kinds of films because it's just disturbing to me. But I mean, where things have become so extreme. Yeah. And people are so desensitized to the violence, to the blood, to the whatever horrible things are happening to people on screen, to where people keep trying to make it more and more extreme and extreme and extreme and extreme. And I personally don't like that. I hate that, actually.
Okay.
For me, it's more about the what's behind the closed door.
Yeah.
The
like psychological
the Hitchcock,
side of it.
The psychological side of things. Yeah. What is behind that door that you don't know is there? I think is always going to be scarier. And this is something I learned from Stuart Gordon, having been, God rest his soul. Now he just passed away last week. Yeah. But I learned so much from him about this, and talking to him a lot about Hitchcock, who's my favorite director, Hitchcock. Nice. And we used to study films together. I used to go to his house, and we would watch Roman Polanski's films. We would watch Rosemary. One of his favorite films, horror films, was Rosemary's Baby.
It's a great film.
And we used to study that film together. And you look at that film, and you look at what they did with it. Look how the camera was positioned behind people and going in, and just the way it was done.
Yeah.
And And I think I learned a lot from him on that stuff. But I think
just for those who don't know, in case you didn't know who Stuart Gordon was, he's just very, very well known in the horror world, but also as a brilliant sort of, in that filmmaker world, masters of horror. He was just one of those guys. He did Reanimator, which was the big one. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. He was known for a lot of big movies. He was a great guy by all accounts as well, and he sounds it if he was a good friend of yours as well. So sad loss.
And it's sad loss. I was lucky to have got to make a movie with him and spend a lot of time with him in the process, and definitely learned. I'd say a lot of the directing into things that I learned from him, and I taught him a lot of technical things that he was trying to figure out, and so we kind of had this great relationship like that. But with horror, things have been. Things have gotten more and more extreme, and if you remember the Hays Code back in the golden era, 40s, 50s, and early 60s.
Okay.
Movie censorship. You couldn't even have like the depiction of a sexual act on film. I mean, it was that crazy back then. And now look at where we're at. I mean, with horror, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So I would say, for me, it's definitely going to be more of the psychological end of things. That's what I prefer. That's what I like. Okay. It's not to say that you can't do whatever you want, but that's always going to be, for me, the strongest, because the imagination will definitely fill in those blanks.
And I suppose that's what's really interesting about your movies, is that they are very psychological, Patient 7 and even Real Evil, which was your found footage, horror. Yeah. It was still psychological elements to that. I mean, quite a lot, really, and that's really interesting that plays out in a lot of your films. And I think, we sort of do sort of move to the area that suits us, the area that we find most enjoyment from. I think that's where we go as filmmakers. Look at Christopher Nolan's a perfect example. He's going, well, I want these really sort of out there sci-fi movies that have a through line and you have to think about them, and he's gone, well, that's what I want to make. So he's making them. And I think that's interesting. So then then you're still making movies. You're still doing it now. And Ouija's Halloween night. Let's talk about this, because this is brilliant.
Yeah, sure. I have to explain myself.
Please explain yourself, and I'll play the trailer because it's so much fun. The trailer. So explain what it's about. I'll play the trailer and we'll talk about it.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you the quick story on this one.
Yeah.
So Full Moon had made a lot of these sort of like how should I say it? These sort of like weed movie, like Evil Bong and all this stuff back in the day, when this movie, Charlie Band, who I've been friends with for over 20 years, we've been making movies together for a long time. He did this thing called the Deadly 10, which is going to be 10 movies by 10 different directors over a year or two, right? And I was going to be one of them, and I kind of had to pick on for the most part of what I wanted to do. And he had thought about this movie, about doing one of these sort of weed movies. And I was my first reaction was no fucking way. And I said no. I turned it down. I was like, no, I'm not doing an Evil Bong prequel or whatever it was at the time, because I personally don't really even I don't like those films at all. I hate them actually. But I said no, I'm not doing it. No, forget it. And then we were talking about some other stuff, like maybe Sideshow 2 or one of these other things. I'm like, no. And then I got to thinking about the weed thing, the weed angle on this again. And I said, if we did this in a certain way, because it had to be one of the caveats was it had to be sort of a weed bait. It had to have a weed theme in it. Okay, whatever. So I, ended up coming up with this idea on basically making Ghoulies. This is really what it is. Right. It's a Ghoulies movie in Vegas during Halloween, but having that funny weed element into it. So we created this movie, and originally it was called Halloween Night. That was the name of the film. And we ended up, over time, we sort of developed these characters, and we ended up calling them Ouija's, like a Ouija board. So we called it Ouija's, and they come out of the Ouija board.
Brilliant.
So anyway, so we ended up retitling the movie to call it Ouija's Halloween Night.
Great, because it means sequels, though, by the way, doesn't it? I suppose.
Yeah. And I love horror comedy. It's one of my, because honestly, I have a hard time taking I don't know, maybe I've just been doing it too long or something, but I actually have a really hard time taking horror seriously. So
because you've seen it all, you've done it all, you know how the effects happen.
I don't exactly, and I have a hard time with it, man. I not to say I can't do it. It's just I prefer horror comedy. So I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity to one, get to work with rubber monsters because I love rubber monsters. Two, to add some comedy in here and just make a goofy, fun movie. And then I had the idea of throwing it back to sort of like 80s fun and the whole thing. And this little new cult classic, Ouija's Halloween Night, was born, and strangely enough, Film Threat gave it an award. So just recently.
That's so cool.
And it's entertaining. I'm particularly fond of it. I just really enjoyed making it. I had fun making it. I think when you watch it, you'll see that the filmmakers had fun making it,
which is important, right? You want that. You know, certainly as filmmakers, we know how hard it is to make a movie, and the fact that you're on set having fun and that comes across is so important.
Yeah. And in this movie, it does come across, and I think that's why people enjoyed it, because one of the important things as a director too is you know. You don't want your audience to think you're trying to pull one over on trying to think that you're outsmarting them or anything like that. When you watch this movie, you know you're going to know that you're in on the joke. You're in. You know that I'm not sitting behind the camera trying to show you a movie that you're supposed to take remotely seriously at all. I mean, the movie's called Ouija's for Halloween night. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm there to take you on this goofy, fun 80s throwback rubber monster, quirky, weird, bizarre movie that you're not going to get at your theater.
You guys believe we got this entire hotel for the whole night? This is going to be the greatest Halloween party in the history of Halloween parties. The party was supposed to start by now.
You have to believe in miracles. That's your miracle. Okay, I know you're supposed to be dead, but you're way too stiff.
I would love to play. I have another game in mind. Behold, the Ouija ball.
Insatiable they are. Blood be their munchies. Meet the Ouija's, man. They be true party animals. Time is running out.
We made it in, we shot it in, was it 4 days? I don't remember. 4 days. I think it was 4 days.
Are you serious?
Yeah. The whole movie was shot in 4 days.
You love your 4-day shooting. How do you...
No, I don't actually. I do not prefer that.
How do you do it? How do you do it then? How do you physically... I know you said it, but for something like this, you've got puppets. You know, you've got...
Yeah, with 4 puppets. Three puppets and one little person in an outfit. So, no.
How is it possible to shoot something this cool and funny in 4 days?
But yeah, those 4 days, I mean, we shot at a hotel, and we literally bought the hotel out for two full days. And then because we couldn't buy it out for all the days, we ended up having to shoot around people actually using the hotel the other 2 days, which the hotel, because it's in Las Vegas, was a swingers hotel.
Brilliant.
So
even better. Get them in.
Yeah, 2 days we had it to ourselves. Right. Crew, everybody was staying at the hotel, including me. And the other 2 days, there were swingers parties. People were at the pool, topless, doing all. I mean, literally, I was shooting around. People walking through my shots. People coming in, checking in. It was a horror show trying to do this. Yes. But I don't know. Somehow we were able to pull it off, and I actually only had to cut I don't know, I had to cut a few pages out of the movie, and I had to do some things here and there to make it all work. But at the end of the day, I ended up getting it all shot. You know,
well done, man. Well
it
done.
Was not an easy shoot.
No,
why
did you choose to do 4 days? Was it a budgetary thing or
total budgetary?
Right.
It cost that hotel alone was like, I don't know, like $8,000 a day just to shoot in it. You know,
Yeah.
No, it was budgetary. I wanted originally I was promised it was going to be a 6-day shoot. Ended up being 4.5. You know, so. Yeah, it was.
That's tough. That's tough. You must have been absolutely lucky. You must have slept for a week after that.
I did. Yeah, and then I shot some stuff on my own after, you know, here and there. We did, you know, some plate shots and all that stuff. So we did do some like insert day type shooting, but principle was very, very, very fast.
And how do you distribute something like that then? I mean, obviously, you know, Full Moon have got their own arm of that. Is that what it was sort of? So it was like, look, go make this movie for very little money and we'll put it straight out. We know how we can sell it. We know how we can make a return on investment. Is that the idea?
That one in particular is, of course, this Full Moon, 100% Full Moon. And, you know, they have their own distribution arm for it. And right now it's only available through their apps and through their subscription, all that. And I think that'll eventually you'll see it in even more places. But, you know, they have their kind of, Full Moon's kind of unique in that way. They kind of control their own distribution. They have their fan base, and I think other companies like Troma and Asylum and all these other places that are making kind of movies too that have their own channels and their own distribution outlets. It was a blast to make. I had nothing but fun making it, and I definitely hope that came across. So, these puppets were made from scratch. I mean, Tom Devlin, who's my effects guy, Tom Devlin is a talented dude. He's got a team of people. He is a 80s fan just like I am. So we had a blast making this, and he sculpted each one of these guys. He made them like you would make them back in the 80s. You know, they had animatronic eyeballs in them, and I mean the whole deal. I mean it was pretty dang cool.
It's very cool. And if you want to see this, you can. It's the behind the scenes video is on YouTube of Ouija's Halloween Night, the complete behind the scenes journey, and it is brilliant. It's over an hour, 30 minutes, an hour. It's like longer. It's like watching the movie twice. It's brilliant. It really is.
Well, you know what's really, I should tell you about that movie too, is that I didn't touch on, is that's the first movie in history that was entirely live streamed on the internet. The entire movie making, every day that we shot, 24 hours a day, not 24 hours a day, I'm sorry, just the time that we were shooting, which was 12, 14 hours a day, with 2 cameras, was live streamed on the internet.
Anything could have gone wrong. I love it.
You heard, I mean, people were saying stuff that I'm like, dude, don't, you know,
this is live. Yeah.
We had like thousands of people tuned in every day from all over the world watching this. It was the first time in history, actually.
Wow.
So, that was one of the things. No studio would do that.
No, never.
Are you kidding?
They'd be so scared. Absolutely.
Well, first of all, you give away the movie and the plot and everything else. But I mean, this was really unique. I mean, it was a really unique thing that we did there. And the behind the scenes and stuff you see is kind of like, you know, just clips of that. But I mean, we have 50 plus hours of, or over 100 hours of stuff, you know, that from shooting that film.
I can imagine. So
anyway, I had to mention that because
it's great you did. That's
one of the things I forgot to mention.
So you can watch that. I'll leave a little link in the show notes as well, so you can see that. I'd recommend it to any filmmaker, regardless of what genre you're in. It just shows you how to make a movie, and it's just brilliant. I just didn't know it was 4 days in total. That's crazy stuff. Yeah,
4 days. And I tried, when we were streaming live, I tried to talk to the camera and let people know what we were doing and all that sort of thing. And no, I just had a blast making that film. I really did. And I love horror comedy. It's my favorite combination of stuff. So
I imagine. So look, you've had this great career. Are you going to keep going with this? You still want to make more horror? You know, I can see from, you know, the bits that are potentially in, you know, that you're doing at the moment. I don't know what's happening with COVID right now and whether things have stopped, or if you're kind of at the moment going, no, I'm still going to make more horror, or what's the plan for you? What's the journey now?
Well, I mean, I've produced other films. I mean, I produced a film just 2 years ago in Ohio at Robert Kurtzman's studio there. A good friend of mine named Billy Butler.
Yes.
Who directed
was this
it.
Three Bears Christmas?
Three Bears Christmas. Yeah. It's a total kids Christmas movie with talking animals, full costume, the whole deal. I mean, Billy wrote and directed and produced, but he brought me on as a producer as well. And we had a blast making that film. And it's one of the only films I actually have a brief cameo in.
Congratulations.
But as a human being.
As a human.
But it's, no, and it came out really great. I really love that film as well. And, but no, I mean, I like to branch out into other genres and stuff. I mean, horror, obviously, I have a massive background in.
Yes.
Now, will I make more horror films? Sure, I'm sure I will. But I do tend to prefer more of the horror comedy or psychological horror type films.
Yeah.
So I do see myself probably making more in the future. But certainly, I like to branch out into other areas.
Amazing.
If sci-fi, obviously a huge fan of sci-fi. I'm a massive fan of westerns.
We've just prepped a western now, actually, that we might shoot.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, we're very excited by it. But whether it happens or not right now is another question. But yeah, we've got one ready to go, and we're just it's something I've always wanted to do. And suddenly, let's do it then. Let's put it to the top of the list. Let's do it.
Yeah.
What are we waiting for?
I love westerns, man. I love westerns and psychological horror westerns. I mean, I don't really. I mean, I'm kind of old school when it comes to this stuff. Like, I rarely watch anything modern. I mean, I'm pretty much TCM, like, Turner Classic Movies. Nice. I watch
the whole March
everything
channel.
I watch is from the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 80s. I mean, I don't know. It's just my cup of tea, I guess.
Yeah. Then maybe that's the way you want to go next, is make those kind of movies again, bring it all back, shoot on film, and
I hope so.
Make some 40s movies. It'd be amazing. Danny, this has been honestly, this has been amazing. Thank you for your time. Could you give us a little bit of advice for? I know you've given so much, but is there anything you can leave us with for independent filmmakers, someone starting out now perhaps, or someone making their second or third movie? Sure.
Well, I think one of the biggest pieces of advice, I think, for independent films is pay a lot of attention to your script and your cast. I see so many movies that the script was actually good, but the cast is just I mean, Hitchcock used to say that 75% of directing is casting.
I think it's more,
and I think it's even more than that.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's hard. Look, it's hard. Sometimes you're making a low budget movie. You don't have a lot of money to pay a cast, or maybe you're non-union and stuff. Yeah. And look, you pick the best people that come in, and that's all you can do, and do the best you can to work with them and get the best that you can. But man, it is just so important to really, really cultivate good acting talent, because really, they are the lifeblood of what people are going to watch on your screen. I mean, yeah, good cinematography, yeah, great sound, yeah, great post, yeah, but really, movies are about the actors, and about the characters. And when you get people on there that are just not pulling it off, it's just, no matter how good the cinematography is, no matter how good that dolly shot is that you planned out, it's just not going to hold up. If you got some boogers in your cast.
Absolutely.
So absolutely, man. I mean, my biggest thing is just, look, just saying, you look at some of my old movies, I got some of the worst acting that you've seen. I am guilty 100% of having boogers in my cast and having made all kinds of mistakes and having to put producers' girlfriends in my films. Yes, I did not want to, believe me, I've done it all. So, but, one of the biggest enjoyments I get out of casting now, like more modern stuff, is finding new talent. And you don't need some old star that was famous in the freaking 80s or 70s or whatever, just to add name value. That stuff is so not important these days. I mean, there's a lot of great fresh talent out there, but you really have to understand as a director what good acting is and what bad acting is. And a lot of people, they just don't, they just look, they'll look at looks, or they'll look at this. But you really have to understand the difference between good acting and bad acting when you're casting. And honestly, I don't think a lot of people can make that differentiate the difference between what is good and what is bad, or they're miscast, or they cast somebody who's really beautiful in a part that is not appropriate for that, or people get miscast. So casting, man, casting.
There you go.
That is the best advice I can give you, because if you got a great cast and a great story, the other stuff is just icing on the cake.
Absolutely,
but,
you can get away with it.
Look for good actors.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
And another really important piece of advice I can tell you too is, do not be afraid, especially coming from an editor, do not be afraid to cut your movie up. Cut it up, because so many directors are so attached to their movie that you say, God, dude, you got to cut 10 minutes out of this thing. Oh, I can't. I don't know how to. I can't cut. You get so attached to your baby that you don't know when to throw the baby out because it's not working anymore. You have to look at your film and say, man, you cut this thing together, and you think it's beautiful the way it is. Always look at it and say, man, I got to cut more out of this. I cut Ouija. Ouija was originally like 100 minutes long. No, I kept cutting it down. I was like, nope, cut that scene out. I cut whole scenes out of that film. And I was just like, it's just too freaking long. Yeah. Get on with it. So always cut your film up, and just don't look at it from your perspective. Look at it from like people that are sitting down watching your film, especially when you got dialogue scenes that are going on for like 5 minutes and stuff. Cut it down.
Yes.
So that's probably one of the best advice I could give you is cut your movie down and hire good actors.
Love it. It's two brilliant pieces of advice. We do a lot of live events as well with the podcast, to Make Your Film events. And I know we've gone online now with it. And I know that you do that with your Cine Study Academy as well. It's an online course. So luckily you've had that going for a while, which is great. I mean, by the way, any filmmaker, go have a look at this course, Cine Study Academy, that Danny runs. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. But I think things like that are vital now for us to just keep going, right? I think it's more important that people find their way and not sit on their own and actually do courses online, and Zoom is massive now and all that kind of thing.
I don't know if now everybody's afraid to sit next to somebody in a classroom. I know. So I mean, I like with my Cine Study thing, that was never the intention, but it's nice to have a film school online that you can just get what you need. And, I mean, especially as a graduate of film school myself, I feel like, 4 years of that, and you only needed certain subjects that to do your own film.
Danny Draven, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Where can people follow you on socials?
I'm on Twitter. So it's at Danny Draven. And I would say that's probably the best place to find me now. I'm not really on Facebook or Instagram anymore. I'm not particularly fond of them services anymore, but definitely on Twitter, and also at cinestudyacademy.com. That's my film school that I have right now. And right now it's sort of it's very baby like there. I mean, it's very, and it's sort of infant stage right now. And I do plan to expand it to be much bigger. I haven't really done much marketing on it now, but if you're interested in just checking out, there's a lot of free stuff on there right now. You can go there, you can sign up, you can have access to like a lot of free material. You don't even have to you just go there. It's cinestudyacademy.com, and you can just go there and you can watch all kinds of free videos if you sign in and stuff. So those are really the only two places that I'm on. So Twitter and Cine Study Academy for now. So,
and that's perfect. And honestly, I recommend you go there. It's so much good stuff, and it's for free. Why would you not? Your filmmakers, you're listening to this, you clearly want more information. Go there. Absolutely, highly recommend. You can follow us at Filmmakers Pod. You can follow me at Giles Alderson, and get out there and make your film. And remember, if you're lucky enough to rise up and do well, it is your duty to send the elevator back down. Danny Draven, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. And don't be an armchair filmmaker, like you just said. You got to get out of the armchair and go out and actually make something. Because honestly, following up on that, do not think that somebody's just going to hand you money out of nowhere. The best thing that you can possibly do, that I've done and so many of other my friends have done, is they pick up the camera, they get their own money together, and they go out and they make their own film. And really that is really the key to getting started, is to go out and make your own film, and the other stuff will kind of follow after that. So best of luck to you guys, or break a leg, I should say.
There you go. Amazing. Thank you so much, Danny. We will see you all next Tuesday. Until then, go out and make your film. Even if you're locked inside, start writing it, scripting it, and getting it out there to whoever to read. You can even go online now and get actors to do a table read for you. Whatever you can, go out there and make your film. But we will see you next Tuesday. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.